Most people think a millionaire mindset is about money, luxury, or looking successful. It is not. A millionaire mindset is how you think before the money arrives, how you act when nobody's clapping, and how you respond when pressure hits. If you already move with discipline, patience, ownership, and long-term focus, then you may be sitting on a millionaire mindset right now and not even know it. This audiobook will expose the signs, sharpen the pattern, and show you why the way you think is already predicting your future. Listen closely. This is bigger than money. This is identity. Chapter 1. Stop thinking like a consumer. Think like a builder. Most people are trained to consume. They see a product, they want it. They see a trend, they chase it. They see somebody winning, they copy the appearance but not the process. That is not a millionaire mindset. A millionaire mindset does not start with what can I buy. It starts with what can I build. That is the first shift. That is the key. Because consumers drain, builders create. Consumers spend to feel something. Builders invest to create something. Consumers chase comfort. Builders chase capability. Consumers buy to impress people they don't even like. Builders develop skills, systems, and assets that actually change their future. You have a choice. Every single day, you have a choice. You can keep feeding your appetite, or you can feed your future. You can keep buying symbols, or you can start building substance. And let's be honest, a lot of people are broke not because they earn nothing, but because they think like consumers all day long. Every extra dollar gets treated like permission to spend. Every opportunity gets treated like a chance to show off. Every paycheck gets divided between impulses and excuses. That is not discipline. That is dependency. A builder looks at money differently. A builder sees money as material, a tool, a seed, a weapon for progress. That's the key. A builder asks different questions. How do I increase my value? How do I improve my skill? How do I turn effort into something that lasts? How do I own part of the process instead of renting my entire life? That's millionaire thinking. Not luxury first, leverage first. Not applause first, asset first. Not image first, income-producing structure first. Look at the people who stay stuck. They often want the reward without the foundation. They want the office without the discipline. They want the brand without the craft. They want the results without the repetition. But builders understand this. What you build in private becomes what you live in public. You do not need their permission. You do not need the crowd to clap before you start becoming useful. You do not need people to understand your plan before you commit to it. You have a choice. Keep thinking like a consumer and your life will keep looking temporary. Start thinking like a builder and everything changes. A consumer asks, what do I deserve right now? A builder asks, what can I create that will pay me later? A consumer wants the fast reward. A builder respects the slow gain. A consumer buys a lifestyle. A builder constructs a future. That's why real wealth usually starts quietly. It starts in the decision to learn a skill instead of chasing attention. It starts in the decision to save instead of flex. It starts in the decision to create content, build systems, improve service, sharpen your craft, or study the market instead of wasting hours on entertainment that leaves you empty. It's not about spending. It's about discipline. It's not about looking successful. It's about becoming valuable. It's not about desires. It's about systems. That's the key. If you want a millionaire mindset, stop asking what feels good and start asking what compounds. What compounds your income? What compounds your competence? What compounds your influence? What compounds your ownership? Because builders don't just make money, they make momentum, and momentum changes everything. Start paying attention to how you make decisions. Do you spend first and think later? Do you want rewards before responsibility? Do you admire appearance more than outcomes? Or do you build quietly, consistently, and without needing validation? That's the question. That's the dividing line. You have a choice, and the people who win long-term are the people who choose building over consuming, substance over signals, discipline over impulse. You mastered the first shift. Now let's go deeper into patience, restraint, and long-term power. Chapter 2. Delay gratification without complaining. Most people do not fail because they cannot start. They fail because they cannot wait. That is the difference. That is the key. A millionaire mindset is not built on constant excitement. It is built on controlled patience, on restraint, on the ability to delay reward without becoming emotional, bitter, or distracted. You have a choice. You can chase comfort now, or you can create power later. You can spend today to feel rich, or you can save today to become rich. You can complain about the wait, or you can use the wait to grow. That is what separates people with wealth-building instincts from people who stay stuck in survival mode. The weak mind wants immediate relief. The strong mind understands timing. The weak mind says, "I want it now." The strong mind says, "I will take it when I have built the capacity to keep it." That is the key. Because impatience destroys compounding, and compounding is where real wealth lives. The person who can wait without whining wins more often than the person who always needs instant results. Why? Because the person who waits with discipline is the person who can save, invest, learn, improve, and stay consistent long enough for results to multiply. You have a choice. You can flex now and stay small, or you can stay quiet, stay focused, and grow large. That is not just money. That is mindset. A lot of people want wealth, but they do not want the boring part of wealth. They want the outcome, but not the discipline. They want the freedom, but not the delay. They want the reward, but not the repetition. That is not how it works. Millionaires are often built in seasons where nothing looks impressive from the outside. They are saving while others are spending. They are studying while others are showing off. They are learning skills while others are chasing likes. They are sacrificing comfort for leverage. That is the difference. Short-term pain, long-term power. Delay now, dominate later. Wait with purpose. Those are not just motivational lines. Those are operating principles. Look at the person who buys everything the moment money comes in. They never build a reserve. They never create breathing room. They never give themselves the space to think strategically. Their life stays reactive. Their choices stay small. Their future stays fragile. Now, look at the person who delays gratification. They don't need the newest thing. They don't need constant applause. They don't need every comfort today. They understand that a delayed reward is often a stronger reward. That person builds power quietly. That person develops patience. That person learns to stay calm while others panic. You don't need their permission. You don't need society to celebrate restraint. You don't need friends to understand why you're skipping the temporary thrill. You have a choice, and that choice is to become the kind of person who can hold the line. Save before you spend. Learn before you earn. Build before you broadcast. That is the key. And let's be clear, delaying gratification is not about being miserable. It's not about hating life. It's not about rejecting all pleasure. It's about discipline. It's about deciding that your future is more important than your impulse. It is not about restriction. It is about direction. It is not about missing out. It is about moving up. It is not about suffering. It is about strategy. That is the millionaire mindset.
If you want to test yourself, ask one simple question before every impulse. Does this move me forward, or does this just make me feel better for 5 minutes? That question will expose everything. It will expose wasted money. It will expose weak habits. It will expose emotional spending. It will expose fake urgency. And once you see it, you can change it. Wait with purpose. Delay now, dominate later. Short-term pain, long-term power. That is how wealth is built. Not in the moment of excitement, but in the moment of restraint. Not in the heat of impulse, but in the calm of discipline. Not by people who rush for comfort, but by people who can endure the process. You have a choice, and if you can master the wait, you're already ahead of the crowd. You mastered restraint. Now let's talk about the habit that separates builders from blamers.
Chapter 3. Take ownership before you take credit. Most people want the reward before they accept the responsibility. That is the problem. That is the key. A millionaire mindset does not start with excuses. It starts with ownership. It starts with looking at your life, your results, your habits again, and saying, what part of this is mine to fix? That is where growth begins. Own it, fix it, move. That is the rhythm. Because people who build wealth do not waste time blaming the economy, the boss, the family, the government, or the past. They do not sit around acting like life happened to them, and that's the end of the story. No, they look for control. They look for leverage. They look for the first thing they can improve right now. You have a choice. You can be a victim of your circumstances, or you can become the owner of your response. That is the difference. That is the key. And let's be honest, blame feels easy. Blame feels protective. Blame lets you stay emotional without changing anything. But excuses do not build empires. Excuses protect egos. Ownership builds futures. The millionaire-minded person understands that accountability is not just a moral skill, it's a wealth skill. Because if you can't own your mistakes, you can't correct them fast enough to win. A person with ownership mentality says, I missed the deadline. I need to improve my system. A person with ownership mentality says, my sales are weak. I need to sharpen my pitch. A person with ownership mentality says, my habits are costing me time. I need discipline. That is the key. Not denial, not drama, not defense. Ownership. Look at the people who stay broke for years. They often have explanations for everything. Their boss didn't appreciate them. Their friends distracted them. Their childhood was hard. Their opportunities were limited. Their industry is unfair. Their town is too small. Their life is too complicated. Maybe some of those things are real, but real doesn't mean useful. And that's the point. A millionaire mindset doesn't ask, whose fault is this? It asks, what is my next move? You have a choice. You can keep telling the story of what hurt you, or you can start building the story of what you learned. And listen carefully. Ownership is not self-hate. Ownership is not pretending nothing happened. Ownership is not denying pain. It's not about pretending the past didn't matter. It did matter. But now the question is this: what are you going to do with it? That is the key. You don't need their permission to improve your life. You don't need the past to agree with your future. You don't need every setback to disappear before you start taking control. Fix what's weak. Fix what's sloppy. Fix what's slow. Fix what's underperforming. Fix it. That's millionaire language. A weak habit? Fix it. Poor time management? Fix it. Bad communication? Fix it. Inconsistent effort? Fix it. Low standards? Fix it. Because wealth does not respond to excuses. Wealth responds to execution. And execution begins when you stop protecting your ego and start protecting your progress. Think about how powerful that is. The person who owns their mistakes gets better faster. The person who owns their habits changes faster. The person who owns their results grows faster.
That's why ownership is a sign of a millionaire mindset, not because it sounds strong, but because it creates speed, and speed matters. The faster you identify the problem, the faster you improve. The faster you improve, the faster you rise. Own it, fix it, move. Repeat that until it becomes automatic. You have a choice. Keep defending the old story or start building a stronger one. Keep blaming or start becoming. Keep explaining or start executing. That's the divide. That's the standard. That's the key. Millionaire-minded people don't need to be perfect. They need to be responsive. They need to be honest. They need to be teachable. They need to correct fast. That's how they protect momentum. That's how they protect their future. And that's how they build wealth from the inside out. You mastered ownership. Now let's talk about the people who get paid for solving, not showing off. Chapter 4. Solve problems. Do not chase attention. Most people chase attention because attention feels like progress. It feels exciting. It feels visible. It feels like momentum. But attention is not money. Attention is not value. Attention is not a business. That is the key. Money follows value, and value follows problem solving. Solve more, show less. That is the shift. Millionaire-minded people do not wake up asking, how do I get seen today? They ask, what problem can I solve today? That is the difference. That is the line. Because people who build wealth understand something most people miss. The world does not pay you for noise. It pays you for usefulness. It pays you for relief. It pays you for clarity. It pays you for solutions that make life easier, faster, cheaper, cleaner, better, or stronger for someone else. You have a choice. You can perform for attention, or you can produce for value. You can chase applause, or you can create impact. You can become loud, or you can become useful, and only one of those actually compounds. Think about the people who stay stuck. They spend their energy trying to look important. They polish their image. They post. They brag. They compare. They stage their life for an audience. But when it comes to real usefulness, there is nothing there. No system, no offer, no skill, no solution. That is not a millionaire mindset. A millionaire mindset asks a better question. What pain am I removing? What frustration am I reducing? What result am I helping people get faster? That is the key. Because businesses, careers, and opportunities grow around people who solve real problems. The cleaner the solution, the stronger the reward. The urgent the problem, the more valuable the answer. That is how money moves. Problems pay. That is not a slogan. That is reality. A person who improves customer experience gets paid because they make the buying process easier. A person who sharpens an offer gets paid because they make the solution clearer. A person who builds a service gets paid because they remove stress, waste, or confusion. A person who creates structure gets paid because they save other people time. Value first, visibility second. That is the key. Visibility can help, yes, but visibility without value collapses. It fades. It gets ignored. It gets replaced. It gets scrolled past. But a real solution? That spreads. That repeats. That gets recommended. That gets remembered. That creates trust. You do not need their permission to be useful. You do not need a crowd before you start solving. You do not need a viral moment to make yourself valuable. You have a choice. You can spend your life trying to be noticed, or you can spend your life becoming necessary. That's the real shift. And hear this clearly. Attention is temporary. Solutions compound. Attention fades. Solutions compound. Attention creates a moment. Solutions create a market. Attention gets reactions. Solutions get results. That is why millionaires care less about applause and more about outcomes. They understand that real power comes from being the person who brings answers when others only bring noise. Look at any serious industry. The people who rise are not always the loudest. They are often the most useful, the best problem solver, the most reliable, the fastest to adapt, the one who improves the process, the one who reduces friction, the one who makes things work. That person becomes valuable. That person becomes trusted. That person becomes paid. Solve more, show less. Problems pay. Value first, visibility second. Repeat that until it changes how you move. When you create something, ask, does this solve a real need? When you offer something, ask, does this remove pain or create ease? When you present yourself, ask, am I building value or just building image? That is the key. Because a millionaire mindset is not about being seen everywhere. It's about being useful everywhere. It's about becoming the person whose work speaks louder than their words. It's about building substance so strong that attention becomes a byproduct, not a goal. You have a choice. Keep chasing applause and you stay dependent on reaction. Keep solving problems and you build something that lasts. And that's the lesson. Wealth is not built on admiration. It's built on contribution. It's built on usefulness. It's built on solving what matters. You mastered problem solving. Now let's talk about what happens when your attention is under attack.
Chapter 5. Protect your focus like a fortune. Most people do not lose money all at once. They lose it slowly. They lose it through distraction. That is the hidden leak. That is the silent killer. And that is the key. Millionaire-minded people understand something the average person keeps ignoring. Attention is a resource, focus is an asset, and scattered attention is expensive. You have a choice. You can let the world pull you in 10 directions, or you can guard your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Protect the focus, guard the mind. Distraction is debt. Repeat that until it sinks in. Every time you scroll without purpose, you pay. Every time you jump from task to task, you pay. Every time you let shallow conversation steal your energy, you pay. Not always in cash, but always in momentum, always in clarity, always in progress. And momentum is what builds money. That is the difference. A distracted person may stay busy, but busy is not the same as productive. Busy can be fake. Busy can be noise. Busy can be a way to avoid real work. But focused people produce. Focused people finish. Focused people execute. That is the key. Look at the modern world. It is designed to fragment you. Notifications, endless content, quick hits of entertainment, constant comparison, random messages, cheap opinions, loud opinions, more noise, more noise, more noise. And if you're not careful, you will mistake stimulation for success. You have a choice. You can feed the noise or you can build your life. You can chase every alert or you can protect your attention. You can react to everything or you can create something. The millionaire mindset says, no, not everything deserves my mind. That is discipline. That is wealth behavior. Because every minute you lose to distraction is a minute that could have gone into learning, selling, building, planning, refining, or resting with intention. Distraction steals all 5 of those, and it does it quietly. It tells you, just check once. It tells you, just reply quickly. It tells you, just watch one more. Then the hour is gone. Then the day is gone. Then the week is gone. And you're left wondering why nothing is changing. That is not bad luck. That is undisciplined attention. Protect the focus, guard the mind. Distraction is debt. A millionaire-minded person does not allow every thought to become action. They do not allow every message to become urgency. They do not allow every opinion to become a mission. They choose what matters. They cut what does not. They protect deep work like it is gold, because it is. And shallow work will never produce deep results. Let that settle. Shallow thinking creates shallow outcomes. Scattered effort creates scattered results. Focused effort creates compounding results. That is why execution matters, because execution is where focus turns into money. Focus without execution is just intention. Execution is what converts intention into output. Output becomes value. Value becomes income. Income becomes freedom. That is the path, and it starts with what you refuse to let in. Turn off what does not serve you. Mute what drains you. Limit what fragments you. Stop pretending that constant availability is a sign of importance. It's not. It's often a sign of weakness. Real power knows how to concentrate. Real discipline knows how to say no. Real wealth knows how to protect the environment that produces results. You have a choice. You can be available to everyone and useful to no one, or you can become focused enough to produce something that matters. That is the key. Protect the focus, guard the mind. Distraction is debt. And the people who understand that will move faster, think clearer, and build stronger than the crowd that keeps getting pulled apart by noise. A millionaire mindset is not just about making more money. It's about creating the mental conditions that let money grow. Focus does that. Discipline does that. Execution does that. You mastered focus. Now let's talk about the value of time and why the wealthy protect it like capital.
Chapter 6. Respect time more than comfort. Most people worship comfort. They choose the easier path. They choose the slower path. They choose whatever feels convenient right now. But millionaire-minded people think differently. They treat time like capital. That is the key. Time is capital. And once you understand that, everything changes, because comfort is expensive. Comfort costs more than money. It costs momentum. It costs discipline. It costs future opportunities. It costs the version of you that could have grown faster if you had simply moved. You have a choice. You can stay comfortable, or you can stay committed. You can protect your ease, or you can protect your future. That is the difference. The person with a millionaire mindset does not ask what is easiest. They ask what is most useful. They do not worship convenience if convenience slows down progress. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They do not wait to feel motivated. They do not wait until the day becomes easy. They move. They plan. They execute. Move with urgency. That is millionaire language. Look at the people who keep losing time. They wake up late and rush all day. They start their day without a plan. They jump from task to task with no structure. They say yes to every request. They fill their calendar with low-value commitments. They confuse movement with progress. That is not a wealth mindset. That is drift, and drift is expensive. Time wasted is opportunity lost. Repeat that. Time wasted is opportunity lost. A millionaire-minded person knows that every hour has value. Every morning has value. Every block of focused work has value. Every decision to say no has value, because time, once spent, never comes back. That is why they guard it. That is why they plan the day before the day begins. That is why they batch tasks. That is why they protect their mornings. That is why they create routines that reduce friction and increase execution. You have a choice. You can live casually and wonder where your future went, or you can move with intention and build something that lasts. That is the key. And let's be honest, comfort feels innocent, but comfort is often the reason people stay average for years. Comfortable habits, comfortable excuses, comfortable delays, comfortable conversations that produce nothing, comfortable routines that keep you emotionally satisfied and financially stuck. Comfort is expensive. It looks free. It feels harmless, but it drains the life out of progress.
Millionaire-minded people understand that early mornings are not about punishment, they are about advantage. Planning is not about obsession, it is about clarity. Saying no is not about being rude, it is about protecting leverage. Urgency is not about panic, it is about respect for time. That is the difference. You do not need their permission to value your time. You do not need everybody to understand why you are unavailable. You do not need to explain why you are building while others are relaxing. You have a choice, and the smart choice is to treat time like the asset it is. If something does not move the mission forward, cut it. If something steals your energy without giving a return, limit it. If something keeps you busy but not productive, challenge it. That is discipline. That is wealth behavior. Because the person who respects time will eventually own more of it. The person who misuses time will always feel behind. Move with urgency. Protect the morning. Plan the day. Batch the work. Say no when needed. Those are not small habits. They are wealth habits. Time is capital, and the people who understand that do not waste it on convenience that slows them down. They invest it. They direct it. They protect it. They use it to build skills, build systems, build assets, and build a life with room to grow. That's how millionaire thinking works. Not lazy, not loose, not drifting. Disciplined, focused, intentional. You mastered time. Now let's talk about the people who do not just learn slowly, they learn fast and adapt faster. Chapter 7. Learn fast, adapt faster. Most people think intelligence means having all the answers. It does not. Wealth-minded people understand something deeper. Intelligence is the ability to learn quickly and adjust quickly. That is the key. Because the world changes, the market changes, the rules change, the opportunities change. And if you stay attached to one method after it stops working, you are not being loyal. You are being expensive. Learn fast, adjust faster. Stagnation is expensive. Repeat that until it becomes your standard. A millionaire mindset does not fall in love with ego, it falls in love with results. And when the result is not working, the mindset changes the approach. It does not sit there defending failure. It studies, it observes, it corrects, it moves again. You have a choice. You can protect your pride, or you can protect your progress. You can keep repeating what used to work, or you can learn what works now. That is the difference. That is the key. A lot of people stay stuck because they treat feedback like an insult. They hear correction and become emotional. They hear a mistake and start explaining. They hear a better method and act threatened by it. That is not strength. That is insecurity. The wealth-minded person responds differently. They say, "Good, now I know." They say, "What did I miss?" They say, "How do I improve this?" They say, "Teach me." That is power, because feedback is not failure. Feedback is fuel. And every serious builder knows that growth requires correction. You do not rise by pretending you're perfect. You rise by becoming better faster than the problems can grow. Look at the people who keep losing time, money, and opportunities. They keep using the same approach even after the results tell them it is weak. They keep talking when they should be listening. They keep repeating habits that are costing them. They do not change because changing feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is part of learning. That is the truth. Learn fast, adjust faster. Stagnation is expensive. A millionaire-minded person stays a student. They study people. They study markets. They study patterns. They study what works. They study what fails. They notice details that others ignore. They upgrade skills before those skills become urgent. They stay teachable before life forces them to be teachable. That is the difference. You have a choice. You can act like you already know enough, or you can stay curious enough to keep evolving. And curiosity is a wealth advantage, because the person who keeps learning keeps getting sharper. The person who keeps getting sharper keeps getting more valuable. The person who becomes more valuable keeps creating more options. That's how adaptation turns into opportunity. That's how survival turns into success. That's how money stays in motion. Now hear this clearly. Adaptability is not weakness. It is not confusion. It is not inconsistency. It is intelligence in motion. It is knowing that if the road changes, the driver changes the route. It is knowing that if the method stalls, the mission stays, but the strategy shifts. That is the key. Do not worship the method. Worship the outcome. Do not defend the old way just because it feels familiar. Choose the better way. That is discipline. That is survival. That is wealth behavior. When you fail, learn. When you miss, adjust. When you stall, analyze. When you receive feedback, use it. When something is outdated, upgrade it. When something is weak, strengthen it. When something is not producing, change it. Learn fast, adjust faster. Stagnation is expensive. You do not need their permission to evolve. You do not need everyone to understand your growth process. You do not need to wait until the pain becomes unbearable before you change. You have a choice. And the winner is usually the person who can adapt while everyone else is still arguing with reality. That's the millionaire mindset. Not rigid, not proud, not stuck. Flexible, sharp, teachable, alive to the moment. A wealth builder is always asking, what am I missing? Because the moment you stop learning, you start declining. The moment you stop adjusting, you start losing ground. The moment you become too proud to improve, you become easy to replace. That's why this matters. That's why adaptation is a sign of intelligence and survival. Because the world rewards the person who can read the room, read the market, read the feedback, and move accordingly. You mastered learning and adaptation. Now let's talk about the discipline that proves who you really are when nobody's watching.
Chapter 8. Keep your standards high when nobody is watching. Most people perform when they are seen. That is not discipline. That is theater. A millionaire mindset is revealed in private, not in public, not when the camera is on, not when people are clapping, in private. In the quiet, in the ordinary moments when nobody is checking on you. That is the key. Standards shape destiny. Let that settle, because what you tolerate in secret becomes your future ceiling. The little shortcuts, the sloppy work, the half-finished habits, the broken promises, the poor preparation, the lazy mornings, the careless details, all of it adds up. All of it compounds, and all of it builds the life you eventually live. You have a choice. You can be impressive in public and weak in private, or you can be solid in private and unstoppable in public. That is the difference. Private discipline, public power. Repeat that. Private discipline, public power. Millionaire-minded people understand that standards are not about perfection, they are about identity. They tell the truth about who you are when nobody is giving you credit. They tell the truth about what you will tolerate, what you will ignore, and what you will do even when it is boring. Do the right thing in the dark. That is the key, because the dark reveals everything. It reveals whether you still keep your word when no one is watching. It reveals whether you still care about quality when the task seems small. It reveals whether you still show up with clean energy, clear thinking, and real effort when there is no applause attached to the outcome. Look at the people who stay average for years. They often lower their standards in private. They tell themselves, it's just this one time, it doesn't matter, nobody will know. But somebody will know. You will know. Your results will know.
your future will know. That's the truth. A millionaire mindset understands that small things are not small. A rushed email matters, a sloppy presentation matters, a broken promise matters, a bad habit matters. Why? Because standards are identity in action. If you are careless in small things, you will eventually be careless in big things. If you are consistent in small things, you will eventually be trusted with bigger things. That's how wealth is built. Not by hype, by standards. Not by pretending, by repetition. Not by random effort, by disciplined behavior. Standards shape destiny. Private discipline, public power. Do the right thing in the dark. That's not just a line, that's a lifestyle. Think about the person who keeps their space clean, their work organized, their body well-groomed, their schedule protected, and their promises intact, even when nobody is watching. That person is building an identity of reliability. That person is becoming someone others can trust, and trust is valuable. Trust opens doors. Trust creates opportunities. Trust builds reputation. Trust creates money over time. You have a choice. You can lower your standards to match your mood, or you can raise your standards to match your future. That's the key. The future does not belong to the most emotional person in the room. It belongs to the most disciplined one. It belongs to the one who does the boring basics well. It belongs to the one who keeps showing up. It belongs to the one who keeps the promise. It belongs to the one who doesn't need a crowd to do the right thing. Do the right thing in the dark. If you say you will do it, do it. If you say you will improve it, improve it. If you say you will finish it, finish it. If you say you will care, care. That's how standards become identity, and identity becomes results, and results become wealth. Standards shape destiny. That's why this matters so much, because millionaire mindset is not built on loud declarations. It is built on repeated private excellence, on self-respect, on discipline, on the refusal to become casual with your own future. Private discipline, public power. You have a choice. Keep lowering the bar in secret and the ceiling will stay low. Keep raising the bar in private and your life will rise with it. That's the lesson. And now that the standard is clear, let's talk about another sign of wealth-minded thinking, seeing opportunity where everyone else sees only problems. Chapter 9. See opportunities where others see problems. Most people look at a problem and stop there. They complain, they panic, they delay, they say, "This is hard." But millionaire-minded people do something different. They look again, they look deeper, they look for the gap. That is the key, because opportunity is often disguised as inconvenience. What looks like a problem on the surface often contains profit underneath. Find the gap. See what others miss. Problem on the surface, profit underneath. That is the mindset. You have a choice. You can react to difficulty like a victim, or you can inspect it like a builder. You can see obstacles, or you can see leverage points. You can see what is broken, or you can see what is missing, and that is where wealth thinking begins. The average person sees an inconvenience and says, "Why is this happening to me?" The wealth-minded person sees the same situation and asks, "What does this reveal? What is missing? What is needed? What can be improved? What can be simplified? What can be turned into a service, a solution, a product, or a better way?" That is the difference. That is the key. Because money does not only come from doing what is obvious, money often comes from noticing what is overlooked. It comes from seeing the pain that other people tolerate and deciding to solve it. It comes from seeing confusion and creating clarity. It comes from seeing frustration and creating ease. Find the gap. Look at the businesses, careers, and ideas that grow fast. They usually solve a real inconvenience. They reduce friction. They save time. They save energy. They save stress.
They make something complicated simple. They make something annoying easier. They make something expensive more accessible. That is opportunity. Not noise, not hype, not random effort. Opportunity. See what others miss. $1 million idea is often not a flashy idea. It is a useful one. It is the thing people keep wishing existed. It is the service people keep complaining about not having. It is the better version of something already in demand. It is the gap between what people need and what they currently get. That is why millionaire-minded people pay attention. They listen to complaints. They watch behavior. They notice where people get stuck. They notice what takes too long. They notice what keeps failing. They notice what people are willing to pay to avoid. And then they think, how do I fix this? That is the key. You do not need to wait for perfect conditions. You do not need the world to be easy. You do not need everything to go right. You need to see clearly. Because difficult situations often hide the strongest opportunities. A market shifts, a habit changes, a technology disrupts, a workflow breaks, a need appears, and while most people complain, the wealth-minded person studies the opening. Problem on the surface, profit underneath. Repeat that. A setback can become a service, a frustration can become a product, a weakness can become a niche, a complaint can become a business, a delay can become a better strategy. That's how builders think. They don't only ask what went wrong, they ask, what value can I create here? You have a choice. You can interpret inconvenience as punishment, or you can interpret it as information, and information is power. Because once you understand what people need, you can become the person who provides it. Once you understand where the friction is, you can remove it. Once you understand what people are missing, you can offer it. That is how value is created. That is how money follows. That is how opportunity becomes income. Find the gap. See what others miss. Problem on the surface, profit underneath. That is not optimism. That is observation. That is not luck. That is awareness. That is not dreaming. That is leverage. And the more you train your mind to see opportunity inside inconvenience, the faster you move from reacting to creating. That's the millionaire mindset. Not waiting for life to be perfect, but recognizing that every problem is also a door for the person who knows how to look. That's the lesson. And now we move to the final sign, the one that proves you are not building for applause alone, but for something much bigger.
Chapter 10. Think legacy, not just lifestyle. Most people think wealth is about lifestyle. A bigger house, a better car, more vacations, more comfort, more status. But that is not true wealth. That is consumption with better packaging. A millionaire mindset thinks differently. It thinks beyond today. It thinks beyond appearances. It thinks beyond applause. That is the key. Build what lasts. Legacy over lifestyle. Think beyond yourself. Repeat that, because the final sign of a millionaire mindset is not how much you spend, it is how much you create that survives without you. That is real wealth. Anyone can buy something. Few people can build something that endures. You have a choice. You can spend your life collecting trophies, or you can spend your life creating value that continues long after you are gone. That is the difference. That is the key. The average person thinks about the next weekend. The wealthy-minded person thinks about the next decade. The average person asks, what can I enjoy today? The wealthy-minded person asks, what can I build that continues creating value tomorrow? That is legacy thinking. Because lifestyle disappears. The meal gets eaten. The vacation ends. The applause fades. The trend changes. But assets endure. Skills endure. Reputation endures. Systems endure. Wisdom endures.
Build what lasts. Look at the people who leave the greatest impact. They do not simply earn money. They create things that multiply. They build businesses that continue operating. They teach principles that continue helping people. They establish systems that continue producing results. They create opportunities that continue benefiting others. That is the mindset. That is the standard. And notice something important. Legacy is not only about money. Many people hear the word legacy and immediately think about financial inheritance. That matters, but legacy is bigger than money. Legacy is your character. Legacy is your reputation. Legacy is your standards. Legacy is the example you set. Legacy is the wisdom you pass down. Legacy is the habits you teach. Legacy is the impact you leave behind. That is the key, because money without values disappears quickly. Money without discipline disappears quickly. Money without wisdom disappears quickly. But when wealth is connected to principles, it multiplies across generations. Think beyond yourself. The millionaire mindset understands this. Every decision is a vote for the future. Every habit is writing tomorrow's story. Every action is building something. The question is simple. What are you building? A temporary image or a lasting foundation? You have a choice, and this choice appears every single day. Do you spend everything on appearance, or do you invest in assets? Do you seek attention, or do you build value? Do you chase comfort, or do you create opportunity? Do you think about yourself only, or do you think about the people who will benefit from your work long after today? That is legacy thinking. That is wealth thinking. That is the key. Build what lasts. Because eventually every person leaves, every career ends, every chapter closes. The only question is what remains. What remains after the applause? What remains after the paycheck? What remains after the title? What remains after the spotlight moves on? The answer is legacy. The systems, the assets, the reputation, the values, the people you helped, the opportunities you created, the problems you solved. That is what lasts. Legacy over lifestyle. The millionaire mindset understands this. True success is not measured by what you consume. It is measured by what you contribute, not by what you display, by what you develop, not by what you own today, by what continues creating value tomorrow. That is why this chapter matters, because this is where all the previous lessons come together. You learned to think like a builder. You learned to delay gratification. You learned to take ownership. You learned to solve problems. You learned to protect your focus. You learned to respect time. You learned to adapt. You learned to maintain standards. You learned to see opportunity. And now you understand why. Not for ego, not for attention, not for temporary comfort, but to build something bigger than yourself. Build what lasts. Legacy over lifestyle. Think beyond yourself. That is the millionaire mindset. That is the final sign. And if these signs already exist within you, then the future you want may be much closer than you think. Now you see it. A millionaire mindset is not loud, flashy, or arrogant. It's disciplined, it's patient, it's accountable, it's focused, it's solution-driven, it's private before it's public. It's built in the small decisions, repeated every single day, long before the money shows up. So don't wait to become wealthy before you think like the wealthy. Think like a builder. Think like an owner. Think like a problem solver. Think like a person whose future matters more than instant comfort. That's the shift. That's the standard. That's the difference. And now the challenge is simple. Listen again, study the signs, and start living them today. If this video hit you, like it, subscribe to Mindshift Audiobooks, and stay locked in for the next transformation.